Good morning, church. How are you on Sunday Fun Day? Oh, turn to the person next to you. I don't know about you, but I'm having fun. Oh, turn to the person on the other side and say, "Oh, you're looking fun day, fabulous." Woo! You have to excuse me, church. Can only say this in Yorkshire, but I've got a bit of a dab on. Mixture of menopause and a mosh pit. I didn't realise I was going to be in a mosh pit, but I loved it. I loved it. A big shout out to our youth who have led the service this morning. Oh, the church is in safe hands. Well, my name's Louise, or Lou, and hello. And I am the chair of trustees and part of the leadership team here at church. Yeah, thank you. It's Brightmore in the house. Oh, yes. Right. So, this morning, I've got a little bit of a second-hand message because I've already preached this message before. And it's a hand-me-down message from our youth. Because I preached this message on a Sunday morning to our youth last November, and Pastor Joe got a whiff of the message, and he said, "Lou, could you preach this to the whole church?" So I went, "Yeah, love to." So this is what you've got this morning. And the title of the message is The Path to Greatness. And we were exploring about what makes a person great. Now, the first activity that I gave to our youth to do was that I gave them a sheet of paper and I asked them to write down what they want to be when they grow up. And we got lots of different answers like, I want to be a surgeon, I want to be an architect, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a TikTok influencer, I want to be a Premiership footballer. That was mine, but yeah. And it's really good to hear that our youth have got high aspirations. Absolutely love that. And then we played a game which is called Which is the Greatest? And so what I did, I gave them two options and they had to choose out of the two which they thought which was the greatest. And so I thought we'd do a little bit of that game this morning. So it's very simple. Two images are going to appear on the screen and I want you to point to the greatest, okay? Now, if you don't like either of them, that's all right. Just humour me and point to the one you hate the least. Okay, are you ready? Let's have a look at number one. Oh, Coke or coffee? Point. Come on. Oh. Okay, all right. Decaffeinated options are available. Next one, please. Oh, cinema or reading a book? Oh yeah. Gosh, you're not very cultured, are you? Not very cultured. All right. Oh, you've got some bookworms over here. That's all right. Next one. Oh, fish and chips. Oh, chicken and jollof rice. Oh. Now we're embracing the fun. Welcome to Sunday Fun Day. Okay, next one. Oh, Facebook or TikTok. Can tell your age by the one that you point to. Come on, over 50s. Come on, as Facebook 50s. Come on. Okay, next one. Ooh, Premiership footballer or a cleaner. Which one are you going to point to? Point to one. Come on. You guys over here, I'm not seeing much pointing. You've got to choose one. Okay, next one. A bus driver or a business person. Who is the greatest? Okay. Point. Okay. Next one. Ooh, a social media influencer or a McDonald's server. Hey, you do get free McDonald's if you work there, though. Okay, brilliant. Okay, next one. A supermarket worker or a rocket scientist. Who's the greatest? Point. Okay, next one. A postman or Taylor Swift. Any Swifties in the house? Yeah. John, I see that hand. You're a Swiftie. Brightmore, Swiftie. Okay. All right. So, when it came to the people questions, our youth did not surprise me with their choices. And then we started to have a discussion about what makes a person great. And again, all their suggestions did not surprise me at all, because the world tells us to be great that we need to be strong, we need to be famous, we need to be rich, accomplished, good looking. And yet, the greatest person who has ever lived on planet Earth, Jesus Christ, was none of these. You know, Jesus was not a muscle man. He was not famous. He was not rich. He was not liked. He was not accomplished. And he was not good looking. This is what it says in Isaiah 53, verses 1-6. Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of the dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. Like one from whom people hide their faces, he was despised, and we held him in low esteem. Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering, yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. We all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us have turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. Now, wisdom tells us to heed the advice of the greatest man who's ever lived. What did Jesus say about being great? Well, he said these words in Mark 10, verses 43-45. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. And Jesus didn't just speak these words, he lived them. We read in Philippians 2, verses 5-8. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing. Do you know what, church? I haven't seen a TikTok about greatness which says, oh, make yourself nothing. I've not seen an Instagram reel which says, oh, here's our 5 tips on how to become nothing. And yet that is what Jesus Christ did. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in the appearance as a man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. To be great, church, we do not need to be rich. We don't need to be famous. We don't need to be accomplished. We don't need to have this position in society. Jesus Christ said it and he lived it. To be truly great, we need to serve one another. Jesus served us by giving up his life for us, and we're called to do the same. John 15, verse 13. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. Now, leading up to this preach in November, I had been pondering about all things about service and serving others. And to give you a little bit of context of what my last 7 months have been like, I need to describe what God's done in the last 15 years. As Colin alluded to earlier, I used to be on the senior leadership team of church, and I ran this building, absolutely loved it. But through a number of prophetic words, I was released into the world of politics. I stood in election, I lost in election, but boy, was the favor of God on my life. And there was a quick acceleration through politics. And I found myself running a Christian organisation in Westminster. And as part of that role, I would advise our current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. He would ask me to accompany him on visits. We would do events together. I had the privilege of speaking into MPs' lives. They would ring me. I would be the go-to person in a crisis, and I would speak into their lives. I even had the privilege of leading an MP to the Lord. I had the opportunity to change the law. I've been to Number 10. I've been at Big Ben. I've got the MBE. And you know what? That is 100% God's goodness and favour, because all of you lot who know me know that I am a complete raving muppet. But the thing that got me where I needed to go is when God asked me to do something, even though my heart was pounding and my knees were shaking, I was thinking, oh, Lord, help me, I said yes. So that's the context. That's the context. That's what I've been doing for the last 12 years of my life. Then last summer, God started stirring my heart. And I felt that he was asking me to come home to Sheffield full time. Now, up until that point, first thing Monday morning, get a train, stay over a couple of nights, come back Wednesday night. But I sensed that God was calling me home, and I didn't know what to. And I remember having a coffee with my friend Mike and my friend Emmy in Sheffield City Centre. It was last June. And I said to them, do you know what? I think God's calling me home. I don't know what to, but I really do need to hear from him, because I knew that I would be stepping away from everything that God had done in my life, because I knew that it would be impossible for me to have a career in politics here in Sheffield and, you know, retain the same influence. And I said, I need to hear from God. The very next day, I was in this auditorium for our women's conference, and Pastor Lois prophesied over my life. She had no idea that I was thinking this. And she said, Lou, I sense that God is bringing you home to Sheffield. I can see you walking the streets of Sheffield, and those steps are anointed. And my friend Paul is nudging me going, do you need any more than that? And I went, no, I do not. All right, Paula. That was a Saturday. On the Tuesday, I'm in my boss's office in London, handing in my resignation. And Ross is saying to me, so Lou, what are you going on to? And I went, I ain't got a Scooby. I haven't got a clue. But I know that God's going to give me something awesome to do, and he will come through for me. Okay. So, in September, I start, just opening, a few doors, see what's behind them. And I started looking for charity jobs, because I've run charities before and it's my go-to. It's my comfort zone. And so I started looking at charity jobs. And you know what, church? Nothing. There was no rise in my spirit. It was like, nah. I thought, gosh, that's interesting. So I went to my next go-to, politics. And I even had a coffee with the leader of our council. And I said, Tom, what do you reckon? He said, Louise, this is the best thing ever. Come on, go for elected office. And I went from that coffee and I went like that. Meh. Felt numb. And I thought, oh, come on, God, what's going on here? And then I sensed that God had something new for me. I was like, no, I don't want to reinvent myself in my 50s. Come on, God. Anyway, I was in my office in London, and I'm making a list of everything that I'm good at, balloon modelling. I've got a maths degree. I put a list down of everything that I would like to do. And then suddenly the idea of all ideas just popped into my brain. Ooh, I could be a maths teacher. And I'm glad you're impressed, because when the idea popped into my brain, I was like, no, that ain't happening. Not at all. There's no way that I'm going to be a maths teacher. teacher. You can forget that, God. But you know what? The idea wouldn't go away. And during that discernment season, I was reading John 13. Don't you just hate it? When you're going through something and then there's a killer passage, you think, why is there not a passage like, do what you like, Lou? There's none. It doesn't. I've looked at the Bible. Here it is, John 13, verses 2-5. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. I'll go to verse 12. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I am your Lord and teacher and have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. I have set you this example that you should do as I had done for you. So here's me wrestling with this. I don't really want to be a maths teacher. And God saying to me, Lou, you're struggling with that outer garment, taking it off. But no, all right, God. All right. Lou, are you struggling to get on your knees and wash the feet of the next generation? No, I'm not. Lou, is this all beneath you? High and mighty Lou, is this beneath you? I'm going, no, all right, I'm doing it, God, I'm doing it. You watch me, I'm going to do it with joy. Watch me. And you know what? The minute I said yes to God, this passion began to burn within me. And suddenly I could see the vision for what God was doing with my life. You know, what if I can transform a young person's life? What if my words break the stronghold on a generation? What if my prayers usher in a revival into that school? What if? What if? So the passion's there now, but no one, absolutely no one, apart from the maths teachers in this room, who are pretty awesome, by the way, understood it. And when I told my political friends in London, they're going, you what? And I've been for 3 interviews, 2 for teacher training providers and 1 for a teaching assistant job, which I've been doing for the last term. And I've had to answer 2 questions in each of those interviews. I knew they were coming, and so sure they did. They said, oh, Mrs. Davies, could you explain why you're going from the top rung of your career ladder to the bottom rung of that ladder? And then the second question, which came as a punch. Mrs. Davies, could you explain why you're willing to take a £30,000 pay cut? Do you know, one of those interviews, they asked for a 3rd reference because they couldn't believe that a woman would leave a career without a scandal. They thought there's something going on here because no one in their right mind would do it. I understand their bafflement because what I'm doing is totally countercultural. You know, I've decided to disregard the man-made path of greatness, which says that you need to have a certain position, a certain salary, a certain influence. And I've chosen the Jesus path. And the Jesus path requires me to take off my outer garment, to get on my knees and start washing some feet. So, that's where we got to in November with the youth preach, and I wrapped it up with a few ideas about how they could serve, and I prayed for them, and it was fabulous. Little did I know that my service to others would go to a whole nother level, and I would have to live and breathe this preach from January up until now, because 2 significant things happened in January. The first was that my godmother, who I love dearly, was diagnosed with a progressive form of dementia. She was discharged from hospital, and my sister and I became her primary carers. We had to sort out her house, her carers, her food, her finances, her health. And our phone would ring multiple times a day because she wasn't safe, and we would have to drop everything and go and see to that lovely woman. The second was that my next door neighbour died, and we love our neighbours. We've lived next to them for 18 years, and we knew that he was going to die. I had the privilege of praying with him 2 days before he passed. But on the early morning when he did, I got the phone call from my next door neighbour. I took off my pyjamas, put on some clothes, went round with yesterday's makeup and a stinky breath, and I dealt with that situation. I called the doctor. I called the undertaker. I stayed with her all day. I then registered the death. I organised the funeral. I took the funeral. I collected his ashes. I saw to his whole estate so that, the life insurance, the utility bills, everything. And I made sure that his widow was well and truly cared for. Now, church, listen to my heart. To care for those two women in their 80s has been the honour of my life. And I just can't get it out of my brain of how much God really loves those two women, that he would orchestrate that 6 months previously I would hand in my notice that I would be here in Sheffield in January for the time that they needed it the most. I love that. And you know what, church? I have been totally humbled in this season. Totally humbled. It just feels as though veils of importance have just shed from me. The veil of a career, the veil of even employment. I remember the day when I had to put down on a form that I was unemployed. I shed the veil of importance and influence and, oh, don't you know who I am? But underneath it all, I discovered the greatest title, and that I am a child of God. And being a child of God trumps money, status, a role, it trumps it. My significance does not come from my salary, my job title, my connections, who I know, my bank balance, my social media likes. I am a child of God, called to serve others, to take off my outer garment on a daily basis and wash the feet of others. And what I want as, we go into summer, I want us to ponder what our service to others looks. So I've got 5 quick questions that I want us to reflect on together. The first one is, does God have our yes? Now, let me make myself very clear. I have done something because God has called me to do it. I am not suggesting that, tomorrow you hand in your resignation, you sell your house, you go and live in a cave. That is not what I am saying, because I've seen some very influential, well-paid people who serve others beautifully. You see, serving others isn't a position, it's a position of the heart. And whether we're earning nothing, 10 grand, 100 grand, whatever it is, each one of us can take off the outer garment and wash someone else's feet. So, the question is, are our lives totally surrendered to God? Or are there areas which you do not allow God to access to? So maybe God's asking you to go on a training course. Would you be willing to go? Maybe God's asking you to go for a promotion. Would you do it? Maybe God's asking you to change your career, your role, your city. Would you go? If not, why not? My final day in Parliament, I sat in Central Lobby, which is the lobby which separates the House of Lords and the House of Commons. And I just sat there just thanking God. You know, there's been so many pinch me moments, and I'm incredibly grateful for that season. But on the floor of Central Lobby is Psalm 127, verse 1, and it says this. Unless the Lord builds a house, the builders labour in vain. How tragic would it be if we're building a life that God isn't building? Can you imagine pursuing a career and God didn't want that for you? Maybe you're investing all your time and energy and money into a hobby, and God says to you, I didn't have that for you. So my question is, what are we building? Surely we need to be obedient to God's call, whatever the price. Is Jesus Christ the Lord of our lives or not? If he is, then maybe this summer we need to spend some time in his presence, surrendering our life to God again, and for us to have our Gethsemane moment where we say, God, your will, not mine. So number one, does God have our yes? Number two, are we struggling to take off the outer garment and wash the feet of others? You know, maybe God's spoken and you're just pretending to be a little bit deaf. Why? Are we full of pride? You know, Philippians 2 says we've got to make ourselves nothing. If you're nothing, nothing should be below you. You should be willing to do anything for God. Or maybe we're struggling to get that outer garment off because we've been serving others for so long. You say, Lou, I am exhausted. And I totally get that. I don't want you to go away from here and go, oh, Lou, she's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. Because you know what? Every day I've wanted to quit. You know, there's been days when I said, why me, God? Why can't someone else do this? The phone's rang and I see it's my godmother and I go, oh. And on days like that, I've had two strategies. One of my strategies is I've shared that with my Connect. Oh my word, Sailor sisters have held me in this season. They've seen a really ugly side to me. They've seen the one where I've got the snot and the tears and I've just yelled, I've had enough! They've seen the call where I've said, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do it. I'm not strong enough. And those women have surrounded me and they've prayed for me and they have cheered me on and said, come on, Lou, we're in this with you. My second strategy was just to fix my eyes on Jesus. On those days when I had nothing left, I just fixed my eyes on Jesus. Hebrews 12, verses 1-3. Therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Do you know what? If you've had enough, just fix your eyes on Jesus. Fix your eyes on the one who can truthfully say to you, I know what that feels like. I know what it's like to go through hard times, but you will get through this. You will endure. You will persevere. There is a joy set out for you. So come on, church. Come on, let's not bail out when it's just getting interesting. Let's use the people around us. If you're not in a Connect, you need to get in a Connect. You need a bunch of men and women who will lift up your arms when you're weary. But let's keep our focus on Jesus. Let us refuse to do this in our own strength. Number 3, do we always have to be the star of the show? You know, the universe does not revolve around us. God commands us to love him and others, not the other way around. It's not about me and it's not about you. It's about us serving this generation. Now, I've got a little bit of a story. But I have to do a bit of disclaimer because you're going to think I'm amazing. And the truth is, I'm not that amazing. So here are the 3 things you need to know before I tell you the story. Number 1, I joined a choir in January. Oh, yes. Number 2, really important point, can't sing to save my life. Number 3, in fact, my son Thomas, I was practicing downstairs and he came running down and he said, "Where's that cat that's being strangled?" I cannot sing. Number 3, even though I cannot sing, boy, do I look the part. If you're going to have a choir, you want me on your front row because, boy, do I have the moves. Okay, so that's a disclaimer. So our choir joined 3 other choirs, and last Sunday we were at Abbey Road Studios in London laying down a few tracks. Okay? Now, there's 240 of us in this room, and you know what? The finished product blew me away. And, I just sobbed. It weren't like, "Oh, that's beautiful." I just, because I was blown away by being part of something so much greater than I am. Now, listen, for 4 choirs to come together, we've not sung together before, we had to do exactly what we had been taught to do. I had to sing at a volume that wouldn't, put other people off, or I wouldn't play my part. I had to sing the words on the sheet, and I could not, however tempted I wanted to be a prima donna, I couldn't go, woo-hoo-hoo, couldn't do that at all. My job was to serve my fellow choir members, and together, when we served one another, it was just such a beautiful melody that took my breath away. Now, there's times in my life, and God said, "Lou, you're it. Get to centre stage. This is your moment." But I found for the majority of my life, God's called me to be in the chorus, in the background, cheering others on and letting other people shine. It is not about me. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about us serving the next generation. Number 4, which path of greatness are we pursuing? Are we pursuing the world's path or the Jesus path? You see, the world's path is pursuing strength, fame, riches, accomplishments, and the perfect bodies. Now, none of these are evil. God wants to bless us. He wants to prosper us. But when the desire for those things is greater than our desire for God, then they become idols and they need tearing down. Do we really need the new iPhone? Do we need flawless skin? Do we really need that salary? Do we really need that social media fame? Or maybe what we really need is a revelation of Jesus Christ, and for our desires to align with His. And then, number 5, how can we serve? See, if you want to serve, you don't have to put an advert on Facebook, TikTok, or, the Sheffield Star going, "Servant looking for fresh opportunities." The reason being is that we're surrounded by need. There's a student on your course that needs a mate. There's a single mum on your street who needs a babysitter. There's a neighbour in your community who looks after that elderly relative and they could just do with a couple of hours off. There's a community grocery upstairs that's crying out for volunteers. There's a wall upstairs that you need to paint. There's a church that I know, not far from here, called C3 Hope, that requires servants to turn up and be part of our kids team and our host team and our car park team and our worship team. How are you going to serve? Matthew 25, verses 34 to 40. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick in prison or go to visit you? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So whether you're volunteering in our community grocery, whether you're on the car park team, whether you're babysitting, whether you're sorting out the finances of a neighbour, whether you're looking after an elderly relative, whatever you do, this is your act of worship. And over the last few weeks, we've been looking that Jesus is saying that he's looking for worshippers in spirit and truth. And whenever you do something like that, it is worshipping the Lord. And we're doing it for him. There is a world out there who needs us. So whether you're a surgeon, a business person, a checkout assistant, a glamorous maths teacher, student, full-time mum, it's time to take off our outer clothing, get on our knees and wash some feet. So come on, why don't you join me? And together we'll travel the path to greatness. Amen.